There's so much information available on the internet that sometimes it can be hard for people to interpret everything that they get. I'm a firm believer in spending all the time that's necessary in order for patients and their families to fully understand what's going on to make a good decision.
Hi, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Tuesday, October the 3rd. Well, a pop quiz for you. Has there ever been a president of the United States with less empathy than Donald Trump? Easy answer, of course, it's no. Donald Trump went to Puerto Rico today and it said some sort of amazing things. He took pains to say what a great job he was doing in disaster relief. He said that the disaster in Puerto Rico had put a whack in the government's budget, has hurt him terribly. I don't think he said anything like that in Texas and Florida. And he talked a lot about Puerto Rico's debt, which it does have some, but it's not the size of some other states, by the way. He pointedly refused to talk to the mayor of San Juan, who's been a critic of his. And at one point, he inexplicably tossed rolls of paper towels to people who'd assemble in a room to hear him. I'm sure they all feel good. You know, Sunday he declared that a golf tournament he participated in would be dedicated to the storm victims. I guess that made him feel a lot better. Well, elsewhere, the federal government, House Republicans came up last night with a plan to save the Children's Health Insurance Program, which has run out of authorization, and if it isn't reauthorized by Congress, millions of children will be in a bad situation. Well, they're going to reauthorize the program, all right, but they're going to do it by cutting Medicare spending and also cutting money out of the Affordable Care Act fund for preventive medicine. That's penny wise and pound foolish, as the old cliche says, but that's the plan at the moment. We'll see where that goes. And speaking of budgeting, you know, there's talk these days about tax cuts. It's interesting. The president's budget director, Mick Mulvaney, says we need deficits, but these tax cuts have to be made even though they'll be bad for the deficits, because deficits are good now, you see. He used to be a deficit hawk back in the day that Democrats were in the White House. Well, we're still trying to figure out what happened in Las Vegas, what spurred Stephen Paddock to open fire on a concert crowd in Las Vegas and kill at least 59 people and wound 500 others. We really don't know. Not much has been revealed. We do know that he had perhaps 23 guns with him. We know that he had explosive devices and more guns in his house. We don't exactly know what motivated him. We do know that 2 guns have been found that apparently were legally converted to fire automatically, that is, without having to press the trigger each time. That allowed him to increase his killing capacity. Why do we need automatic weapons in the United States? I mean, perhaps if you're faced with a giant herd of deer, you've got to kill a lot of them fast. Maybe that's the reason. Up in Fayetteville tonight, they're going to talk about giving $500,000 in city tax money to lure the makers of a TV show to town to film that series there over the course of several months. They've heard the usual promises as this produces tremendous benefits of economic impact. Most of the studies show that's not true, but we're always lured into movie and TV economic development schemes. If Fayetteville was the place they wanted to film this series, they wouldn't need to pay anybody for the privilege. It'd be worth their while to be there. The thought is this is going to be the 3rd season of True Detective, written by Nick Pizzolatto, who got a master's degree in fine arts at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville and so has a local connection. Steve Clark, the former Attorney General, now Chamber of Commerce honcho up there and a drum beater of the old school type, is one of the ones pushing this handout of state tax money to a well-off HBO TV series producer. Speaking of state money, the monthly revenue report is in for Arkansas. Flat revenue in September, not down from last year, but not up, and a little bit below the forecast. We haven't yet gotten that huge economic boom that we were promised from the state's penchant for tax cuts. News today that appeared on the federal court docket that Joseph Beckman, the district judge from Wynne, Arkansas, at least former district judge, who's accused of bribery, wire fraud, and other crimes for giving favors to people in his court in return for their sexual favors, is going to be in federal court Thursday for a plea change hearing. That often signals that there's a plea bargain in the works, but nobody's talking about it just yet. Last night, the Little Rock City Board voted unanimously to get an opinion from the Ethics Commission. What they want to do is press enforcement of a city ordinance that says you can't raise money for a city election campaign until 5 months before the election. Warwick Saban and Frank Scott, who are both running for mayor, have set up exploratory committees, which the state law allows for you to raise money for 2 years before an election. The city doesn't think that's right. You know, I think spiritually they're certainly right. the city board passed this ordinance to restrict fundraising as a means of reducing special interest influence in city government. The twist here is, though, at the same city board which thinks it's unfair for challengers to be able to raise money to challenge incumbents like themselves, that they don't see anything wrong with Mark Stodler sitting on almost $75,000 in money held over from a 2014 campaign in which he was unopposed. And the city ordinance, the same one they want to enforce against Warwick Saban and Frank Scott, says Mark Stodler should have given that money back to either his contributors or a non-profit a month after the election 3 years ago. He didn't do it. He clearly planned on using that money, but somehow that's okay with the incumbent city board members, but not Frank Scott and Warwick Saban. A little hypocrisy at work there at the city board. Well, that's it for today. I'm Max Brantley. I'm resisting, and a happy birthday to my brother in Bratislava, who's turning 58 years old today. I'll be back tomorrow.